This is Business Edge on News Central. I'm Tolulope. Adeleru-Balogun. Our headline story. Update on Nigeria's cryptocurrency restriction. Now, terror financing and money laundering are some of the reasons why Nigeria's Apex Bank brought down the hammer on trading in digital currencies. What is the latest? And again, what is the future? That is our focus today. Welcome. This is Business Edge. Earlier in February, the Central Bank of Nigeria reminded deposit money banks, non-financial institutions, and other financial institutions of a previous circular which warned them against doing business in crypto and other digital assets. And the Apex Bank of Africa's largest economy instructed financial institutions to immediately close the accounts of such persons or entities transacting in or operating cryptocurrency exchanges. The result is that many in Nigeria now have limited options of trading in digital currencies. Many financial institutions have since enforced this across the country. They were also threatened that any breach of the CBN's directive would attract serious regulatory sanctions. The CBN released an 11-page document explaining its position to the general public, clearly stating that digital currencies are issued by unregulated and unlicensed firms. This does beg the question of legality. It also linked cryptos to terror financing and money laundering. On February the 11th, the Nigerian Senate discussed the matter extensively. Lawmakers agreed to invite the regulators like the CBN, SEC, and those involved with cryptocurrency exchanges in Nigeria. Joining me on the show now is Seun Dania. Seun is the CEO of Trade Fada, and we're going to get into what has happened since then and the possible future of cryptocurrency. Seun, welcome to Business Edge. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right, I'll put you on the spot a bit in terms of what's the latest in this situation. You operate in the cryptocurrency space, so you are one of those directly affected by a reminder of the CBN's position regarding the cryptocurrency space. So now, since the enforcement started, have you been able to use your bank accounts or any accounts? Because we've also heard that it's not necessarily the accounts you use, as long as you're linked to cryptocurrencies, other banks as well, not just the primary accounts where the money is moving or whatever, are also enforcing this. What's the situation?
Yeah, so since the enforcement, and of course, CBN gave the directive with immediate effect. So yes. Immediately the circular went out, I think on Friday morning. By Friday evening, we already started losing access to all our bank accounts. You know, some of them were closed outrightly, and some, were informed, officially that they were going to communication, that they were going to be closing and whatever it is that we needed to do. However, in certain situations, you are requested to, the banks tell you they're going to give you a bank draft, and it's going to be drafted in the name of your company. But then, how do you cash it? And some others, some of the other payment providers also tell you they are going to be able to transfer whatever balance you have to an account with your company name. So even operational accounts, which you use for paying salaries, everything completely...
Personal accounts as well?
No, not personal accounts, because I don't use my personal account for cryptocurrency transactions. But, company operational accounts that you use for your day-to-day administrative purposes and paying staff salaries, everything completely shut down. So since the regulation or since this directive, we haven't been able to do any business.
What is your legal recourse? Because in terms of this, I'm sure in a way you've spoken to lawyers in terms, especially with, we'll give you a draft in the name of your company, but meanwhile, that same company cannot cash. They have no accounts to cash that draft into. So are there legal options open to you in regards to this?
Yeah, there are a lot of legal options, which gives everybody freedom to. But then, unfortunately, the directive is to the banks, not to the cryptocurrency exchanges. And the banks owe an obligation to the CBN because they are regulated by the CBN, and they have to act based on that. Yeah, they can be sanctioned by CBN. So even if you were going to take any legal actions, you'll be taking legal actions against the banks. But the banks have a higher power who they are following the directive, because we know as it is, you could just be fined one ridiculous amount for not following the directive. So, what it is thank God that our legislators are actually, they've come out to speak against it and to actually, request for some, like there's a public hearing tomorrow.
Are you going to be there?
Yes, I will be there.
Okay.
There'll be a public hearing where, the legislative, the CBN, the SEC, and all the stakeholders will, have a sit down and actually discuss how to go about this. Because, of course, it doesn't go well just outrightly just denying everybody to financial services. Yes, we have the right to have financial services, but you really can't do anything, with the banks. And there was also some part in the news where it says they were investigating, in cryptocurrency exchanges, but there's been no memo written to us directly, there's no communication whatsoever from the CBN, from the banks, from whoever is carrying out this investigation to find out what they're actually investigating or, what it's all about. It's just an outright, so they've shut everybody out completely.
So how are exchanges faring? You know how you're faring, but I'm very sure you talk to others in the space. How are crypto exchanges faring in Nigeria? Yeah,
most of the local exchanges are pretty much dead at the moment. But, we have, cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin particularly, was designed to circumvent the government.
Exactly.
So what you have is a peer-to-peer network, so where person-to-person transact directly with each other. So what has happened right now is
you've pushed them underground.
You've pushed people underground. So now not unregulated or unregistered companies who are participating as exchanges, who actually are like financial intermediaries, have now been closed out and then not giving access to the black market to thrive. So everybody is going on the black market. You have the international exchanges, they have peer-to-peer platforms. Some of them who didn't have actually, added that to part of the services. So it's pretty much still working. We are just the ones who have been shut out. Those who decided to take the initiative to register businesses and to actually, come up front to say, yes, we're involved in this kind of innovation and we're willing to do business.
Okay. So I want to take a look at two things that have come from this. We've had the CBN say a few times that they've linked cryptocurrencies to terror financing and money laundering. How do you respond to that, even though terror financing has been around before Bitcoin?
Yeah, so terrorist financing has been before Bitcoin. Truth be told, anytime there's a new innovation, whether, any technology innovation, it is first adopted by people who are technology inclined, and some of those technology inclined people happen to be maybe these black hackers, black hat hackers, and
they have
the rest
questionable
of them.
motives.
They have questionable motives, and because they absorb technology faster. So yes, people have used Bitcoin in the beginning. It was more on an underground market transaction thing. But the truth is, Bitcoin is not anonymous. The blockchain is not anonymous. It's a distributed ledger system. It's public. So every transaction done there is public.
It's traceable.
It's traceable.
Okay.
It's public. Anybody can go online and, check who sent to who. Of course, you won't see whose name it is, but then you have organizations who have come up, who have developed risk management solutions to be able to track from point to point. And when it gets to an exchange, right, you are now able to know where the final destination is. So what has happened right now is we've given access to the black market. Now there's no insights as to how terrorist financing is going on. But over 90% of blockchain Bitcoin transactions are legitimate.
As is with money too.
Yeah, as with money. So terrorism, kidnapping has been going on in Nigeria for a long time, and I don't believe that all the ransoms that have been paid were paid with Bitcoin. Neither was any of the whether settlements or whatever it is. So terrorist financing with Bitcoin, I don't think it's not an excuse. The whole world is adopting these technologies. People are embracing it. Governments are looking for ways to be on top of it, to actually be able to adopt it and understand it as opposed to outrightly banning it. Because what we find out is in Nigeria, when you ban certain things, people then go and start adopting, start circumnavigating the whole system.
To the dark side in a way.
To the dark side, yeah.
Okay, so that was one allegation. Another allegation comes from the senator from Niger State. Senator Sani Musa said that Bitcoin has made Nigeria's naira to become useless or valueless. Seun, how would you respond to this, that it is Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies' fault, particularly Bitcoin, for the valueless or, I guess, useless states of the Nigerian naira?
If more than anything, I believe that cryptocurrency transactions have actually added or aided the naira's value. And that is, there's a huge demand for the foreign exchange in Nigeria. There are a lot of people who are doing businesses outside this country. There are a lot of people who are paying for services outside this country. There are a lot of people who, international remittances, from outside, diaspora remittances, You know, people do, you can't stop trade, international trade, you can't stop it. And there's so many limits that the CBN has put on people doing transactions. So imagine, and a lot of people who want to carry out these transactions are able to carry out these transactions using cryptocurrencies. So imagine if everybody who now use cryptocurrencies is now looking for dollar. That would increase the demand for dollar and then further devalue the naira. So I believe more than anything, cryptocurrencies have actually helped to, you know, stabilize the naira, because people have found use cryptocurrencies as an alternative means to, you know, making money.
So that demand, that pressure on the dollar is not there.
And still, you know, remittances still come in via cryptocurrencies. People change it to naira here. You know, there's more money in the economy. It's basically stimulating the economy. A lot of people are getting jobs, you know, directly and indirectly. Developers, you know, admin, people are renting offices, employing a whole lot of people. There are people who are trading cryptocurrencies daily as a means of, you know, making money. And that has taken away all the pressure on government having to provide direct jobs to people or give people stipends. During the pandemic, you know, there are a lot of people who were jobless, who didn't have anything to do. And cryptocurrency trading had been working and has been going on. So people found a way to, you know, learn about it, and they've been trading legitimately and doing their businesses and be able to provide for themselves and for their families.
Okay. So let's also talk about this. Now, this particular circular that came from the CBN, which we're now looking at the update, is actually a bit contradictory to a framework that was released by Nigeria's Securities and Exchange Commission late last year regarding cryptocurrencies. Now, that framework laid out a number of issues, how it would be regulated, what you could do with it, and things like that. So in terms of monetary policy, in terms of having agencies of governments work together and have one direction, and even in a way speak with one voice, what do you think this seemingly ununified stance from the SEC and also from the CBN now tells you about the regulators' understanding of the space, even though SEC has seemed to have stepped down or stepped back for the CBN?
It's sad because normally when these kind of things are happening, when there's new technology, there's new innovation, government or, you know, leaders are supposed to have a bird's eye view of the entire thing, you know, and then see how everything works together. So they, at the beginning, the government is supposed to have come up, you know, with a way to match all these regulators together, you know, calling external bodies or stakeholders, understand how it works. Because with cryptocurrencies, there are different intermediaries. You know, there's the, let's say, like initial coin offerings that people who, you know, like securities and tokens that people issue. Those are like under SEC regulation. The exchanges and, you know, people who change, basically the exchanges, you know, and like brokers, those are kind of like under the regulation of the CBN. The blockchain technology itself will be under, you know, the IT development agencies. And there are several other parts of it. There's no one agency that can actually oversee everything. So on the government level, they're supposed to actually take a bird's eye view, see how this whole thing, and then appoint the right agencies. They all now need to work together and come up with a standard framework or regulation, and then now delegate which agency supersedes what on certain issues. So that way, everybody is working together. So there would have been no way that the CBN will just come up one day and say, oh yes, because the NITDA is working on a framework. SEC is working on the framework. SEC already asked all the cryptocurrency companies plus token issuers, developers, everybody should submit, you know, their documents and everything, you know, for some level of formalization. You know, for those who are issuing tokens, you are requested to have like a legal opinion that classifies if it's a security or it's a utility token. And all of that work was going, which was giving confidence to the industry that yes, we're moving in the right direction. Just for this to happen, and this, you know, kind of like completely shut out. There's some international companies who basically just up and left. And these are companies who have invested several millions of dollars, employed people, you know, invested in infrastructure, pretty much, you know, because everybody sees Africa is the future. And a lot of people are willing to invest in Africa. And then this new innovation, as we're adopting it in Africa, a lot of it has completely affected. So the agencies need to work together. There's no better time for us to retrace our steps and actually understand that as a government, we should own up and say, yes, we probably have messed up in a few places, but we need to make sure that there's collaboration, you know, there's synergy between all the agencies. Everybody understands how these things work. And if in the case whereby you are lacking knowledge, please invite invite the professionals. They will tell you, people who understand it. There's what we call peer review. You review with other governments from other countries and see how they are working on, not just going online and reviewing what they have done, actually communicating with them. It's, they have this FA, the Financial Action Task Force, they bring all the countries together, provide all these standards for anti-money laundering and all of these things. And a lot of countries abide by these things, which is what makes it uniform, so that they're able to exchange information within each other. So we need to be able to take advantage of all these pre-existing structures and, as a government, as a people, work hand in hand with these things, see how it is. Because the day it was banned, I think Bitcoin was trading for $37,000. Just immediately after, one of the richest men in the world, Elon Musk, bought over $1.5 billion in Bitcoin. Right now, Bitcoin, at least before I came into the studio, was trading over $55,000. So we are moving. People in other countries are progressing. They are making access. There are people are making money from this. And at the end of the day, when you make the money, you're going to spend it here locally.
Okay.
The money is not leaving.
The money is not leaving, and of course, peer review and collaboration. We'll continue this conversation after a break, and when we come back, we'll look at the legal and policy landscape that has been surrounding cryptocurrencies for the past few years, and also talk about what the future for cryptocurrencies holds in Nigeria. Will the CBN retrace its steps? You stay with us. This is still Business Edge on News Central, and we're talking about an update from the regulatory hammer, I guess we can say, from the Central Bank of Nigeria regarding cryptocurrencies in the country. Seun Dania is still with me. Seun, let's talk about the legal and policy landscape that surrounds cryptocurrencies, and that's particularly around the world, and it has changed in the past few years. The past 4 years have seen cryptocurrencies become more ubiquitous, prompting more national and regional authorities to grapple with their regulation. The expansive growth of cryptocurrencies makes it possible to identify emerging patterns. So in terms of patterns, what patterns have you noticed, particularly in Nigeria and Africa? You own an exchange, Trade Fada. What are the patterns you've seen, either with how people are getting into it, how governments are working with it, or in some cases, I guess you might say, even against it?
So in Africa as a whole, for some countries, they have actually stepped back. I mean, what is government's part in all of this? To make sure that investors don't lose their money. But at the end of the day, I think investors they can choose what they want to do, So the circular in 2017 actually says, I mean, it's at your own peril if you decide to trade in Bitcoin. But if you look at it from 2017 till now, people who probably invested then now have made so it's difficult for you to tell people not to because they can clearly see it.
Returns,
They can see it. So other countries, what they are doing is ensuring that yes, we are trying to protect you, we educate you, and also see that it is money transitioning. A couple of years ago, a couple of decades ago, we didn't have internet banking, we didn't have ATM cards. A couple of centuries ago, they probably used salt for trade, they used cowries. There were all kinds of things. There was a time where people had to move bullions of gold all at one time to facilitate trade, but all of that is not happening anymore. There was a time when every day in Victoria Island was bullion van moving around the whole place, carrying cash from one branch to the other. But all of that has been eased by introduction of technology. Now, with the technology that's in place, people can transfer money from point A to point B. It makes it very, very simple. So governments have adopted it. Some governments, I know even in Nigeria, there's a particular bank that was fined for implementing internet banking several years ago.
Ahead of its time.
Ahead of its time, So governments are embracing it. Governments are developing, they are working on government-issued digital currencies where the government is backed by the government and they are the ones who are in charge of it. The banks can work with it. The people can use it to facilitate, because at the end of the whole day, if I transfer money to you now, normally, I'll need to send you a snapshot, a screenshot to prove. And then, you call me, I haven't received it, I need to call my bank. And then the bank would say, oh, yes, I need to get. But with blockchain technology, it is open. If I have sent money to you, or if I've transferred value to you, immediately you can see it, whether it has been confirmed or not, but you can see that it has been done. People, there's also smart contracts that are put in place that people use to execute contracts for over a long period of time. So if I say I'm selling something to you, this is the value now, you're going to pay X, Y, Z, we'll lock it, we'll code it into a contract, and that contract is executed as the time. All you need to do is ensure that you make the payment available. And, there are a lot of innovation going around this. So companies, countries, even here in Africa, they are not stifling it. They've seen the inflow of foreign investors to digital currencies and cryptocurrencies. Okay,
Sean, we have to go, but I know there's so much conversation because there are many, many questions, but there's one I definitely have to ask, and it has to do with the future as well. So we've seen that many people have given the CBN flack for actually banning trade and whatever in cryptocurrencies in Nigeria rather than regulating the space. So this is a twofold question now. What type of regulation of the space do you think is possible for a commodity that is not absolutely legal tender in any jurisdiction? And unlike most conventional currencies, it's not issued by a monetary authority, it's not controlled or regulated, and the price is determined by supply and demand of the market. So how do we regulate something like that? And then what is the future? Do you think the CBN will come around? I'm going to need this answer quickly because time is not with us.
So the future, basically, like I mentioned earlier on, cryptocurrencies were designed, Bitcoin was designed to circumvent the government, That is, you're not supposed, people do not trust the government anymore. What the government needs to focus on is building the trust with the people. And in terms of the kind of regulation, you cannot regulate the currency, you can regulate the players in the industry. So what the CBN needs to do is regulate the exchanges.
Like yourself.
Let them operate by certain standards so that you have a control. And then for SEC, you regulate how people issue these tokens. Because, there was a time, there's no doubt about it, there was a time when ICOs, as initial coin offerings, were like the thing. Everybody was creating their own. That's basically minting their own money, that kind of. So SEC regulates that aspect. That way you can have, it's not going to stop the people from dealing peer-to-peer. But you can have an oversight. People who need government trust, or then the government needs to work on that trust factor so that people trust them enough to say, well, this is a regulated company, or this is a company. That's why a lot of people trade on exchanges, because they are companies, they are registered companies, they have directors, they have board, they have structures. There's a face to somebody you see, as opposed to peer-to-peer where it's just sent to this person that you don't know from.
Code.
You don't know from anywhere.
All right, Seun, I know we've had you here a few times on this, and we'll definitely continue the conversation because many are anticipating that the CBN will, in a way, backtrack. We don't know when, but as you said, there is that public hearing tomorrow as well, so there will be some kind of conclusion, or at least consequences, and maybe an action plan going forward. Seun Dania for Trade Fada, thank you so much for joining me on Business Edge.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
All right, let's get into some NC4 to watch with a few stories we are keeping our eyes on. And guess what? Cryptocurrencies are at the top of the list. Now, despite restrictions in some countries, others are looking at expanding cryptocurrency use through regulations. Now, Morocco is such a country. Morocco's central bank has established an exploratory committee to investigate the merits of a central bank-run cryptocurrency. Kenya has launched a $34 million project aimed at cushioning the effects of drought caused by climate change. The project is aimed at targeting communities living in arid regions of the country. Now, moving into the southern part, South Africa's Department of Home Affairs has published its draft critical skills list needed vacancies, outlining the skills which are in short supply in the country. Now, this list is important for businesses in South Africa who are looking to attract skilled workers. And finally, banks in Nigeria have started opening dollar accounts for recipients of remittances that did not have one as part of efforts to boost international payments and foreign exchange inflow into the country. Now, this is in response to the CBN's order to banks to facilitate money transfers by automatically opening dollar accounts for those who do not currently have such. And that's it on this edition of Business Edge. As always, thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget, we are offline, online, and on the ground, and we are at News Central TV. I'll see you next time. I'm Tolulope. Adeleru-Balogun.